The sky burned red when the first strike came. No one knew it was war until the buildings started falling. Civilians screamed as glass shattered and sirens roared. In the middle of the chaos, Commander Rayn Carter ran into the bunker, his heart pounding like a drumbeat of fear. He had seen battles before, but never one that started like this. The aliens didn't send warnings, no broadcast, no demands. Just a rain of fire from ships that tore the clouds apart. The Earth Alliance scrambled jets, but they were too late. Cities fell within hours, soldiers were outgunned. Every defense was useless against the precision and fury of the enemy. Rayn was one of the lucky ones. He was stationed on the edge of the front lines, away from the main targets. His squad had orders to escort civilians, but before they could even reach them, their dropship was hit. The explosion knocked him unconscious. When he woke, he was alone in the forest, smoke rising. In the distance, comes dead. He staggered through thick trees and falling ash. His uniform was torn. Blood dripped down his side. Every sound made him jump. The war had changed everything in a matter of hours. And as he walked toward the sound of distant energy blasts, he didn't know he was about to meet someone who would change his life forever. Her name was Elara. She wasn't human. He saw her through the trees, her skin faintly glowing under the moonlight, her eyes wide with fear. She was hiding behind a rock, a strange device clutched to her chest. Rayn raised his weapon, thinking she was one of them. Then she spoke in broken English. "Please, not shoot." "I don't want war." Rayn hesitated. That hesitation saved both of them. Elara wasn't a soldier. She was a medical apprentice, a healer, not a fighter. She had fled her people's warship when the attack began. She said she didn't believe in this war. She had seen too much death. Her voice trembled as she spoke, and Rayn saw something strange in her eyes. Guilt. They spent the night hiding in the remains of a crashed drone. Rayn fell hard, washing away blood and ash. Rayn asked her why she helped him, and she didn't answer at first. Then finally she whispered, "I don't know. Maybe I am broken. Maybe I care too much." The next morning, Rayn woke to the sound of approaching boots. Soldiers from the alien force were searching the area. Elara froze. If they found her, they'd call her a traitor. If they found him, they'd kill him on sight. Rayn didn't think twice. He pulled her close and buried them both under the debris. They stayed silent as shadows passed just inches from them. When the danger faded, Elara looked at him like he had done something unthinkable. "You saved me," she said. Rayn shook his head. "You saved me first." That night, they ran together, away from the war, away from the burning cities. Neither of them knew where they were going, but they both knew they couldn't go back. They found an old human outpost, long abandoned. Inside were scraps of old supplies, half-broken machines, and a map. Rayn patched what he could. Elara helped with the wounds. And as they worked side by side, something strange happened. She smiled. It was small, faint, but it was real. In a world where fire rained from the sky and trust was shattered by betrayal, a smile meant something powerful. Rayn didn't understand what it meant yet, but he would. By the third day, the bond between them was growing. They weren't enemies anymore. They were survivors. And more than that, they were becoming something rare in war: hope for each other. But hope is dangerous. Someone saw them together, someone who would not stay silent, someone who believed that love between human and alien was a betrayal. Trouble was coming. Elara's people had strict laws. Love between her kind and humans was forbidden. The punishment was death, and they would rather kill one of their own than let her break that rule. Rayn didn't know that yet. But the war that began with fire would soon become personal. Because when they tried to take her, he would be ready to fight back. The alarm wasn't loud. It was a soft, clicking hum buried in the wall of the old outpost. But Rayn had learned to listen to the quiet sounds. They meant danger. He pulled Elara back from the window and whispered, "Someone's close." Elara tensed. Her glowing eyes flicked toward the broken ceiling. She could sense them too. Her people had trackers, silent, invisible drones that could scan warmth through walls. If one had seen them, it was only a matter of time before soldiers arrived. Rayn grabbed what supplies he could. He didn't have much. A cracked sidearm, 2 ration packs, and an old human map that barely made sense. Elara had only her medkit and that strange silver pendant she always wore. She said it had her family's seal on it. Now it might be her. Deathmark, they ran again. Through dry riverbeds and burned trees, the forest had become a graveyard, quiet and lifeless. Rayn tried to stay calm, but every rustle in the leaves made his hand jump to his weapon. He had trained for war. Not for this. Not for running with someone the world said he shouldn't care about. But he did care. He didn't know when it started. Maybe it was the night she wrapped his wound with trembling hands. Maybe it was when she whispered his name in her language, and it sounded like something sacred. Maybe it was when she smiled and said, "You feel like home." They reached an old mining station carved into the hills. It was hidden under thick vines and dirt. Elara scanned it with her device. No power, no signals. Safe maybe, she sighed. Rayn nodded. It was better than nothing. They crawled inside and made a quiet camp in the dark. That night, Elara sat close to him, too close. Her warmth was strange, soft like heat from sunlight. Her voice was low as she said, "They will come soon." For me, Rayn looked at her, "Then we'll keep running." Elara shook her head. "They don't stop. They will hunt until they find. And when they do, they will not ask why." Rayn clenched his fists. "Let them come. I'll fight." Elara touched his hand gently. "If you fight, they kill you too." For the first time, Rayn felt something deeper than fear. Helplessness. He was a soldier without a mission, a man without a place. But with her, he had purpose. And now that was being torn away. Suddenly, there was movement outside. Rayn jumped up, gun drawn. Elara froze. Blue lights flashed through the trees. Drones. Dozens. They hovered like ghost eyes, scanning the earth. One of them buzzed closer to the station. Rayn aimed, but Elara pulled his arm down. "No," she said. "If you shoot, they know exactly where we are." They watched in silence as the drone paused, then floated away. Rayn exhaled slowly. Elara leaned into him. "We can't stay here." He looked at her. "Where then?" Her voice was quiet but firm. "There's a human station, hidden deep. Your people don't even use it now. Old peace base. My mother once studied there. Before war." Rayn frowned. "You know where it is?" She nodded. "I can lead. But if they catch us before—" "They won't," Rayn said. But they were already too late. When they stepped out into the woods the next morning, 5 soldiers were waiting. Not human. Elara gasped. They wore the crest of the High Warden, an elite branch of her people's guard. The tallest stepped forward, his voice cold and sharp. "Elara of House Varn, you are charged with betrayal and bonding with a human male. Come now, and your death will be painless." Rayn raised his weapon. The soldier sneered. "You point that at us? You think she is yours?" Elara stepped forward. Slowly, arms up. "Don't hurt him," she said. The guard grabbed her wrist. Too late for mercy. Rayn fired. Once, twice. One soldier fell, but the others surged forward. Rayn ducked, rolled, and fired again. But he was just one man. And they were trained executioners. Elara screamed his name. That was the last thing he heard before everything went black. Rayn woke up choking on blood and dirt. His vision spun. The sky above him had changed. Blue morning had turned to a dull red dusk. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was. Then it all rushed back like fire in his lungs. The ambush. The Soldiers. Elara's scream. He tried to sit up, but pain exploded in his ribs. His left arm wouldn't move. His weapon was gone. His pack, too. The ground around him was scorched, marked with boot prints and blackened leaves. But Elara was not. There. She was gone. Rayn forced himself up, stumbling forward like a man made of broken wires. His body screamed for rest, but his mind only screamed her name, Elara. She had surrendered to save him. He remembered her hands pulling him back, her voice begging the guards to stop. She had chosen him. And now they were taking her to die, somewhere. Deep in his chest something snapped. He had run long enough. He had hidden, bled, survived. But this he would not allow. Not after everything they had been through. Not after the way she looked at him when she whispered, "You make me feel human." Rayn tore cloth from his own uniform and wrapped his ribs. He searched the woods until he found the broken remains of one of the enemy's fallen. A pulse rifle, dented but usable. A cracked communicator. And most important, a map slate. The slate was encrypted, but Elara had shown him their symbols. Before, he remembered enough to find one phrase blinking red: transit route, High Warden custody transport. It was heading toward a location deep in the mountains, marked with a symbol Rayn recognized. Execution site. He had less than a day. Rayn moved like a ghost through the forest. He knew how to stay low, how to track by scent, how to use shadow and silence as weapons. Every hour cost him blood. Every step sent pain through his bones. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Elara's life depended on him now. By nightfall, he reached the high cliffs overlooking the transport route. Below, he saw an armored skimmer moving slowly across the valley. Guarded, shielded, he had one chance to get her out. One moment to strike, no backup, no reinforcements. Just him, a half-working rifle, and rage. Rayn waited until the skimmer reached a narrow canyon choke point. Then he triggered the old mining explosives buried in the cliff walls. The rocks came down like thunder, slamming into the transport and stopping it cold. Chaos exploded below. Alien soldiers shouted and scattered. Rayn was already moving. He slid down the cliffside, firing as he dropped. The first guard never saw him. The second tried to raise a shield. Rayn shot straight through it. The third hit him in the leg with a stun pulse, but Rayn didn't fall. He had something stronger than adrenaline. He had purpose. Inside the damaged skimmer, Elara sat chained to a metal wall. Blood stained her lip. Her eyes widened when the door blew open, and Rayn stepped in like a storm. She whispered his name. He broke her chains with shaking hands. She tried to stand, but her legs failed. He caught her before she fell. "You came," she said. "I said I wouldn't let them take you." The escape wasn't clean. More guards closed in. Rayn had only a few rounds left. He lifted Elara in his arms and ran into the burning canyon. Rocks shifted under his boots. Lasers sliced past him. One shot grazed his shoulder, another hit near his foot. He didn't stop. Elara clung to him, barely conscious. "Rayn," she said weakly, "they will keep coming." "I know," he said. "They will hunt us across worlds. Then we'll run across worlds." He found an old evac pod buried near the crash zone left behind from the mining days. It wasn't meant for long flights. But it would fly. Rayn carried her inside and sealed the hatch. The engine screamed to life. He didn't look back as the pod lifted off. Far below, the canyon burned. The soldiers screamed in fury. But they were too late. Rayn and Elara were gone. Together, and far above the broken sky. Past the war-torn earth. A new journey was beginning. The escape pod rattled like it would break apart mid-air. Sparks danced from the panels. Warning lights flashed red across the controls. Rayn gripped the throttle with one hand and held Elara steady with the other. She was barely awake, her head resting against his chest. The pod wasn't meant to fly this far. They shot through the sky in a trail of smoke and fire, aiming for the northern deserts, one of the last unmonitored zones left on the planet. No satellites, no patrols, just sand, heat, and silence. It was their only chance. The pod crashed hard. Metal screamed as they hit the dunes and skidded for nearly half a mile before coming to a stop. Rayn's arm was bleeding. Again, his vision blurred. But Elara was alive. That was all that mattered. He lifted her out into the burning sun. The desert stretched in every direction. No trees, no cities, no shelter, just endless waves of heat and dust. But far in the distance, barely visible, stood the remains of an old outpost, one of the peace stations Elara had spoken of. They walked. Each step was agony. Rayn limped badly, using a broken piece of the pod as a crutch. Elara leaned on him, still weak from her capture. Her glowing skin had faded, her breathing was shallow. But she didn't complain. Not once. As they neared the outpost, a strange shadow passed overhead. Rayn froze. A drone. Sleek, silent, different from the others. Elara stared up at it. "That's not my people," she whispered. Rayn frowned. "Then whose is it?" The drone hovered, scanned them, then flew away without attacking. That was unusual, suspicious, but they had no energy left to chase answers. Not yet. Inside the outpost, the walls were broken but standing. Old solar panels hummed weakly. There was water barely drinkable. A communication tower stood rusted and tilted, but its antenna was intact. Rayn got to work. He had one goal: now send a message to any remaining human forces. Rayn Carter, former commander. Holding Outpost 09 Gamma. Need evac. Have alien civilian witness. Urgent. He sent the message 3 times. No response. Ilao och from the corner. Her eyes were glassy. She was burning with fever. Rayn sat beside her and pressed a cold cloth to her forehead. "You need medicine," he said. "Real care. I can't fix this alone." She smiled faintly. "You fix more than you know." That night, she woke screaming. Rayn rushed to her side. She grabbed his hand with surprising strength. "They found us," she said. "Not my people. The ones who want me dead more than them." Rayn's stomach twisted. "Who?" Elara took a long breath. "My mother's council. They never wanted peace. They sent others, silent hunters, worse than soldiers." Rayn looked out the broken window. He had seen war. He had fought aliens and watched cities fall. But he had never heard fear in Elara's voice like this. "They won't just kill us," she whispered. "They'll erase us." Rayn knew what that meant. No bodies, no evidence, just silence. In the morning, the drone returned. This time, it didn't fly away. It hovered low, releasing a small capsule. Rayn approached carefully. The capsule opened with a hiss. Inside was a message device. A voice spoke. "To the human and traitor Elara, we know where you are. You have 1 night to surrender, or we finish this our way." The voice was calm. Too calm. Elara stared at the device, then at Rayn. "We can't run anymore." Rayn agreed. He looked around the outpost. Old defense turrets, broken gates, worn control panels. Nothing strong, but something. Enough to make a stand. "We don't need to run," he said. "Not this time." Elara stood beside him, weak but steady. "Then we fight," Rayn nodded. "We hold them off. Long enough for someone to answer the message. Long enough to survive." Together, they started preparing. They had less than 12 hours. But for the first time, Rayn didn't feel afraid. Not with her beside him. Not with the woman who had once healed him, now ready to fight with him. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was everything worth fighting for. The desert wind howled through the cracks in the outpost walls. Dust swirled through the narrow halls like ghosts warning of what was coming. Rayn stood at the rusted control panel, checking power levels on the old defense grid. Most of it was dead, some of it flickered. But one turret still had juice. One turret was enough. He had set traps at the front gate, old mining charges buried beneath the sand, linked to motion triggers. He'd broken apart the drone capsule and rewired its components into a proximity alarm. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. He didn't need to win. He just needed to survive. Elara sat near the main wall, watching the sunset turn the sky into fire. Her fever had cooled. The water helped. So did the herbs she remembered from her training as a healer. She looked better, but her eyes held a storm. She knew what was coming. They'll arrive after nightfall, she said. Rayn nodded. I want them to. She looked at him with a strange mix of sadness and pride. You're not afraid to die. He met her gaze. I'm afraid to lose you. That silence between them said more than words ever could. They sat together until the sun disappeared behind the dunes. Then the wind stopped, and the desert went quiet. Too quiet. Rayn moved to the gate and activated the turret. Its lights buzzed to life. He could feel them out there hidden in the dark. Elara stayed low near the tower, her hand wrapped tightly around the communicator. Still no response, no help. Just static. The first sound came like a whisper, sand shifting, a footstep. Then another. Rayn aimed his rifle toward the dunes. Figures appeared, tall, sleek, and almost invisible in the dark. Not in armor. Not like soldiers. These were assassins. Silent, fast, trained to kill without being seen. Elara's people called them Nulls. Rayn had only heard rumors before. Now he was about to face them. The first one stepped on a trigger. The sand exploded upward. 2 assassins vanished in fire and dirt. The others didn't stop. They moved faster, zigzagging through the chaos. Rayn fired, dropping one with a shot to the chest. The turret locked onto another and blasted it apart. But more came. They slipped through the gaps in the walls. One rushed Elara, but she was ready. She swung a broken metal rod with all her strength, cracking the attacker's skull. Rayn shot another as it lunged toward her. They fought side by side, surrounded but unbroken. Rayn was bleeding again. A knife had grazed his side. His body screamed for rest, but he kept moving. Kept shooting, kept protecting her. For every assassin that fell, 2 more arrived. Elara shouted, something in her language loud and desperate. Rayn turned just in time to see her fire a flare from the outpost roof. The sky lit up in a burst of red. Rayn didn't understand. Then he heard the sound. Distant, low, but growing louder engines. From the horizon, a ship streaked through the sky, small, fast, and armed. It wasn't military. It wasn't alien. It was human. A private responder. Someone had picked up Rayn's emergency signal after all. The assassins paused. Rayn didn't. He shot 2 more before the rest turned to run. But one stayed, the leader. He moved like lightning and tackled Rayn to the ground. His blade sank deep into Rayn's shoulder. Rayn cried out, fighting back with his bare hands. The assassin raised the blade for the killing strike. Elara screamed. And then the shot came. The assassin's head snapped back as a rail round tore through his skull. The human dropship hovered. Overhead, a figure in full armor stood at the side door with a rifle still smoking. Reinforcements had arrived. Rayn collapsed. Elara ran to him, blood on her hands, eyes wide with fear. Stay awake, she whispered. Please stay awake. He smiled weakly. Told you we'd survive. The rescue team dropped down and pulled them both aboard. As the dropship rose into the sky, Rayn looked out the window. The outpost shrank below them. Smoke rose from the dunes. But it was over for now. Elara sat beside him and took his hand. You saved me again. Rayn looked at her through tired eyes. I didn't save you. You gave me something to fight for. She squeezed his hand gently. Outside, the stars began to shine, but somewhere beyond them, others still watched. And they weren't done yet. Asterisk, the human ship soared through the stars, quiet inside but heavy with the scent of smoke, blood, and medicine. Rayn lay on a stretcher in the back bay, wrapped in bandages, barely able to move. The stab wound in his shoulder was deep. His ribs were broken. But he was alive. Elara never left his side. She sat beside him, her hand gently wrapped around his. Her skin still glowed softly under the cabin lights. She looked out the window, watching the stars blur past. Knowing this peace wouldn't last, the crew treated her with confusion and caution. They had orders to escort the alien witness to a neutral station for questioning. No one asked if she wanted to go. No one cared why she had chosen to save a human. To them, she was just part of the war. Rayn noticed the way they looked at her. He didn't like it. When they reached the neutral zone, a hidden station near the asteroid belt, the ship docked in silence. Soldiers in black armor waited at the airlock, human command, cold eyes, no emotion. They scanned Elara and ordered her to step forward. Alone, Rayn tried to sit up. "She's with me," he said. One officer shook his head. "She's not one of us. She's a foreign combatant. She's not a soldier. She's a healer. She saved my life. That doesn't change what she is." Rayn's heart pounded. He looked at Elara. She stood tall, calm, but her eyes were full of fear. She knew what was coming. Interrogation, isolation, maybe worse. Her people had tried to kill her. Now the humans didn't trust her either. She had nowhere left to go. Rayn stood, ignoring the pain, and stepped between her and the officers. "If you take her, you take me too." The officer's hand went to his weapon. "Stand down, Commander." "I won't." The airlock went quiet. Rayn's voice rose. "She risked her life for me. Her people tried to kill her for it. Now you're doing the same thing. You think you're better? You think this war gives you the right to treat someone like this?" No one spoke. Then Elara placed a hand on Rayn's back. "It's okay," she whispered. "Let me go. I'll survive." But he shook his head. "No, we survive together." He turned to the soldiers. "You want to arrest someone? Arrest me, but she stays free." The silence cracked. A different voice spoke through the intercom, a general, watching from the station above. "Stand down. Both of them. We've seen the footage from the outpost. We've read the reports. The council wants answers. But not bodies." Rayn looked up. "Then let us speak, together." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "Very well, you'll both be questioned. But your records, Commander, will be sealed." "And she stays with me," Rayn said. Another long pause. "Accepted." The officers backed away. Elara stepped into Rayn's arms, her body shaking. He held her close, tighter than ever before. The storm wasn't over. But for now, they had made it through. Over the next days, they were questioned again and again. Elara told the truth, how she had run from her people, how she had seen the madness of war, how she had fallen for the one man who showed her compassion in a world full of fire. Rayn stayed by her side. They were offered transport to separate colonies. They refused. They were offered safety under military watch. They refused. They wanted peace, but not as tools, not as prisoners. Together, they asked for something no one expected. Freedom, a ship of their own. A place to go far from. Both empires. Somewhere they could live without fear. Somewhere no one cared what species they were. Only that they loved each other. After long weeks, they got it. A small transport ship. No weapons, no orders. Just stars and fuel and time. Rayn stood at the pilot's seat, adjusting the course. Elara sat beside him, her hand in his once again. She leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time, there were no soldiers, no chasers. No war, only silence. "I thought I lost everything," Rayn said. Elara smiled. And I thought I didn't belong anywhere. He looked at her. Now we belong to each other. She nodded. Always. And as the stars opened wide in front of them, their ship disappeared into the unknown, not as enemies, not as victims, but as the first of something new.